Hi, I'm Fox, and I love horror. From books to video games to weird experimental YouTube shows, I just adore it. Horror was honestly my first genre love, and it's only grown stronger through the years with no signs of stopping, so naturally I have thoughts. Thoughts that I want to share with other horror lovers, or maybe just people that want to dip their toes into the genre. Which is why here I am making videos now. I decided that the best way to sort of showcase who I am as a horror fan would be to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, but in a hate-filled way. Yes, I am about to complain for like the next 15 to 20 minutes. You'll find out quickly whether you love it or despise it. Welcome to Lucid Screaming. By the way, content warning. A lot of these theories are incredibly ableist and some mention sexual assault, so tread lightly. Dark theories about media aren't anything new, but they've certainly felt more popular in the last decade. Especially for kids' media, nostalgic cartoons that we watched growing up that we're now viewing with an adult eye. Most of these dark theories are absolutely awful. And not in an, oh wow, I'll never think of the show the same way deal. More of an, oh wow, people really want to be edgy without any real thought. The thing about a lot of these theories is that there's no real evidence in canon, it's just people spouting off random bullshit like they're writing a wildly out-of-character fanfic. Also, a lot of it is incredibly ableist, dehumanizing, and frankly, mocking mental illness. I'm not talking about things like how religious groups think Gravity Falls or the Owl House or satanic propaganda or whatever. That's just fundamentalists being fundamentalists. I'm talking about real fan theories that are just ridiculous and edgy for edginess' sake. One of the most infamous dark theories is the Rugrats one. I'm sure plenty of you watching know immediately what I'm talking about. It's a mess. If you don't know, and oh do I envy you, it boils down to all the babies being in Angelica's head. Not just that, but figments of babies that are dead. Tommy, stillborn. The twins, aborted. Chucky died at birth with his mother. But hey, some of the babies were actually real. Like Dill, who Angelica supposedly beats so bad he's mentally disabled. And then there's Kimmy, whose mother is now a sex worker. Drug addicted, of course. Also, because of the drug addiction, Kimmy is taken away from her. Susie, meanwhile, just, I guess, humors these delusions until Angelica dies from heavy drugs, probably at the age of 13. Oh, and she has bipolar schizophrenia. Fuck, that is just so much bullshit to take in. None of it has a basis in reality, by the way. It's definitely not at all hinted at in the show in any way, shape, or form. Hell, it's more likely for the Lost Rugrats storyboard jam Incredible to be in canon. And if you have no idea what that is, I'm gonna go ahead and not explain that here. Have fun looking that up. It's worse than you think. Rugrats is not the only cartoon to get the figment of imagination treatment. It's a popular one. I guess people just really don't like fun. Courage the Cowardly Dog? Just a regular-ass dog who imagines all these scary threats. The dad clownfish from Finding Nemo? Imagined Nemo to cope with his wife's death. Dexter's Lab? Just a kid with an overactive imagination. Except for the theory that Dexter actually killed his family through science gone wrong and replicated a new family out of guilt. People don't understand what cartoons are. Speaking of an overactive imagination, you know that show Doug, where Doug Funny has a vivid imagination he sometimes gets caught up in? There's a theory that he's schizophrenic, because people don't know, 1, how imagination works, or 2, what schizophrenia is. I'm super offended by this one. People have no idea what schizophrenia is, and instead of learning, they just demonize it or use it to be edgy. Like, it is an actual mental illness, not a quirky thing you pick up at Hot Topic like it's eating tacos. People who make these theories really hate mental illness, have a deep misunderstanding of mental illness, or use them for edge points, to creep people out. And the worst part is, a lot of people buy into it for some reason. Well, I guess the reason is that it's so common to misunderstand and be afraid of mental illness. A lot of our media demonizes mental illnesses already, and they're heavily stigmatized in our society, so it should come as no surprise they're used in these edgy dark theories so often. Schizophrenia is a common one to use, probably because people think it's the scariest without really understanding what it's like to have this illness. There's so many bad, purposefully harmful information out there, and kids who make these theories don't know any better or don't try, so they continue the cycle of othering. That being said, having a vivid imagination, especially at 11 years old, is not the same fucking thing as schizophrenia, you cheap vaudeville acts. Speaking of mental illness, which I do often, did you know people really believe that all the animals in Winnie the Pooh represent different mental illnesses? Eeyore is of course depression, and what I would be like as a donkey. Piglet, obviously, general anxiety disorder. Owl is narcissism, again, people not understanding what a certain diagnosis actually is. On the same note, Rabbit has obsessive compulsive disorder. As someone who's actually got OCD, no. Just no. Oh, and of course, Christopher Robin is schizophrenic, because all of these characters exist in his head or something. Remember, imagination is a mental illness. I don't know how many different ways I can say this is all incredibly offensive and not even a good theory. I should also note that ironically enough, this theory stems from a joke paper put out in 2000 in the Canadian Medical Association Journal, which I will link below. Like, it was fake. It was a funny little joke. People have decided to run with it as fact, however, because satire is dead, murdered in its own home in broad daylight. In this vein, can't forget the Powerpuff Girls theory that the three girls are in fact the multiple personalities of one little girl we never see, who is bullied by her older brother who takes the form of Mojo Jojo. That's it, basically. Is that better or worse than the theory that the show is just the imagination of three regular little girls playing, and Mojo Jojo is their older stepbrother who is sexually interested in them? Trick question, because either way, I suffer. By the way, I'm not shitting on people who see their own neurodivergence or mental illness in a character. I've done that plenty of times. People create more autistic characters than they realize. That's not what this is, though. This isn't people going, oh, this reminds me of me. It's people going, ooh, spooky, scary mental illness. Huge fucking difference. Not all dark theories are malevolent, however. Some are just because people don't understand how society was as a past. Like the theory that the original Scooby-Doo series takes place after an economic crisis. After all, why else would people now bat an eye at 4 teens driving all around the country by themselves? And everyone seems to just be doing crime. It must be because the economy crashed, and not at all because this is just a goofy cartoon with a talking dog. Psst! Guess what? This cartoon takes place in the 60s. Teens driving cross-country by themselves was the norm. Don't tell me you haven't heard of Woodstock or stories of your parents, grandparents hitchhiking. That's just what America was like back then, which is transferred into the following Scooby media. Also, the gang's ages are not explicitly stated. 18 is a teen age, yes, but also legally adult, making it even less weird that they're going around America with no chaperone. Even in other Scooby media, it's rare to have specific ages for the gang, and a lot of the time they seem more like in their early 20s anyway. As for all the people dressing up to do crimes, man, there were so many serial killers back then. And frankly, most of the villains they capture seem like they'd be totally down to murder some teens. That's just America, baby. Also, we don't need an economic collapse for a plethora of people to be driven to crime. And that's just what capitalism breeds. Another theory that isn't malicious but really is weird is that Charlie Brown has cancer. That's why he's morose all the time and bald. Like, nah, kids just got early depression. It happens. It's funny, though, that people would rather believe he's dying. Just let a little kid be bald. Fuck, you want to hear a real wild theory? Remember the Smurfs? They're white supremacists. Those little gnome hats? KKK hoods. Papa Smurf? He's wearing red like a grand dragon, the leader of the KKK. Smurfette? Pretty blonde hair that's admired by everyone. I think. I don't know, I never really watched the Smurfs. I know I've seen X-rated fan art of her. There is the whole fact that the villain, Gilgamesh? Gargamel. Anyway, he does look a little bit like a Jewish caricature, compounded with the fact that he wants to transform the Smurfs into gold, and there's like an episode or a comic where he tries to spread greed throughout their Smurfy village by giving one a coin or something. I don't know, I'm not Jewish, so I can't really speak on this matter. Regardless, even if the Smurfs aren't supposed to be little Nazis, this has not necessarily aged well. There's also a comic where apparently Smurfs are turned black by getting bit by some fly thing and they become savage and evil. And that's unfortunate and, racist. Yeah. But it's from the French comic line, so we can't blame that one on the Nazis. French people are racist too, especially in 1963. For the record, some theories are actually fun. I know, I was shocked when I found them too. They're rare, but oh, are they gems. Going back to Scooby-Doo, which I constantly do because it's a special interest, there's a theory that the reason they haven't aged through the years is because they're ghosts. Ghosts catching people pretending to be ghosts. I love that idea, honestly. Now, obviously, that is not what this franchise is about, but I'd love a separate cartoon with that premise. You don't even need the talking dog, there's plenty there already. Now, my absolute favorite theory that has no basis in canon whatsoever, that has no backing from the show it's about, is for Ed, Edd, and Eddy. The cul-de-sac is purgatory, and all the kids we see there are those that died during different eras. Rolf died first in 1903 on the land the cul-de-sac would eventually inhabit, trampled to death by a bull. Next was Johnny in 1922 from tuberculosis. And then came Eddie, who died during the Great Depression, which explains why he's always chasing that quarter. Ed and Sarah died together, the next pair to arrive to the cul-de-sac purgatory, early 50s car crash. And then, about the late 70s, Naz gets offed brutally by a serial killer. Double D follows in the following decade with a gas leak that causes an explosion. Kevin dies in the late 90s from being severely beaten by his abusive father. Finally, Jimmy arrives in the early 2000s from lifelong leukemia. If that's not tragic and juicy enough, the Kanker sisters are demons that are there to torment them, taking an special interest in the Eds. Obviously, this theory isn't true, but it's amazing. I'd watch a whole ass show with this premise in a heartbeat. I adore it. It makes no sense for the actual show, but if you made this into its own thing, really lean into it. Show the kids dressed from the eras that they come from, acting like that, where they're figuring out how to exist or escape this purgatory and deal with demons. Mwah, chef's kiss, love it. I don't know why people like to take wacky cartoons and make edgy theories. And don't get me wrong, I do love fan theories. We should be examining our media and discussing it, reading between the lines. These things are good and they're fun. They foster critical thinking skills and engagement and community. However, we also need to stop mocking mental illness and treating it as creepy. I am begging you. Mentally ill and neurodivergent people are just that. People. Show some respect, some understanding. Don't use us as a decoration or props to scare your audience. Go out and educate yourself on mental illness and neurodivergence. There are good sources out there. Here's a hint for weeding through all the information. If it paints these people as lesser or evil, then it's bullshit. Much like these theories. It's almost funny how many dark or fantastical shows will get theories that it's all imagination, but lighter or more grounded cartoons get theories about mental illness or it's all secretly dark. Maybe there's something interesting to be said there, but it's not coming out of my mouth. Did I miss any dark theories? I know there are more out there, it's a terrible landscape to navigate. But maybe you know one that's actually good. Or so bad it's hilarious. Let me know, I'm curious. For now, I'm Fox. And thanks for joining my lucid screaming.